welcome to another installment of What If Fishbowl. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Chief here, and I'm joined by my wonderful crew, Jalen and Juicy. So we're going to be talking about what if LSU fielded a top 20 defense that is ranked number 20 in total defense for the 2023 season. Here is my prediction of what I think would have happened with LSU fielding a top 20 defense. You know that they had an offensive monsoon firepower, tanks blazing with Jaden Daniels leading the way for LSU and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. at wideout positions. I think LSU would have been able to stretch the field very well and gave their defense plenty of time to rest up. Now, the big question is, would Matt House have put them in the right position to, there's been times they were playing out of position. It seems like they got receivers open. So I might differ in opinion with a little bit of people here. I do think they would have went one more game. I think they would have won the Ole Miss game, but I think Alabama would have still beat them at the end of the year. Now, would they have gotten in the Final Four? I think Alabama would have gotten in because of that head-to-head win. I think they would have probably gotten in a better bowl. LSU with an extra win or two. I think they probably would have. Florida State would have been a tough one for them, but. If they would have fit a top 20 defense, I think they would have been better than Florida State. I think they would have ended up beating Florida State too if they had a top 20 defense against them. So I think they would have lost one game on the year. I think that game would have been to Alabama or Florida State. But I'm gonna give them the win against Florida State if they fielded a top 20 defense because how many points were scored and trying to it would have been a very close game. But Juicy, what you think? You think LSU would have done better, national championship bound, but I think they would have missed the playoffs. What you think?
Honestly, I think they would have been right up there with the 2019 team with Joe Burrow and all that. I mean, because if you look at that team, the defense was only like top 40, top 50 defense, somewhere a little more in the middle of the pack. But the offense scored enough, to beat everybody. I think honestly it would have looked the same result. I don't think Florida State would have had that second half that they had. Had they had a great defense, I think I think the offense probably would have actually performed a little bit better because they wouldn't have had to try to play catch up and take chances and whatever. I just think with the way Alabama looked this year at times on shaky because they're Jalen Milroe with their offense they look kind of they didn't always look right on offense. I mean, when you look at it, so I think LSU honestly would have ran the table. I just straight up say they would have went undefeated had they even had a sliver of a defense.
Jalen, what you think? How you think LSU would have done this season with a top 20 defense or ranked number 20 overall?
Now, having a top 20 defense, well, for starters, Keon Coleman at Florida State, who is a Louisiana native, by the way, he wouldn't have embarrassed the LSU DBs like he did the first game of the season. It would have been way closer. I think they ultimately could have beat Florida State. I think they would have beat Ole Miss, especially how the defense played against Ole Miss in that game. And like Juicy said, I think they would beat Alabama too. I think honestly LSU could have had an undefeated season. Now, I would say this about Alabama. You saw how they played against Texas and how they played in the college football playoff against Michigan, two defenses who kind of stopped Jalen Milroe, who kind of put him in positions to where he didn't play his best football. Now, on top of that, if LSU had a top 20 defense, I think he would have had a terrible game against this LSU team. And you saw how Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors had a connection from the beginning of the season all the way to the end. That LSU offense is so potent to the way that every receiver was making plays. Kyron Lacey making plays. Brian Thomas, Chris Hilton. I think names like that. And some of those guys are returning next year. So I think the LSU defense would have helped them win a national championship.
Yeah, I think it would have been one of those things, guys. It would have been very interesting. What do y'all think? Do you think LSU would have been able to, be able to get, in the playoff, or do you think they would have stopped short of the SEC championship or won the SEC championship and play for getting the playoff and maybe winning, end up playing Michigan and win the national championship? But this is only one scenario out of 1,000 or millions of scenarios that could have potentially played out. But it's always nice to wonder what if.